Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the City of Bettendorf Committee of the Whole meeting. Today is Monday, August 15th, 2022. It's 5 o'clock p.m. I'm wearing a mask because I was sick last week. Don't really know what the heck we had, but I'm trying to be respectful of those around me and not spread whatever it was because you don't want it. We do have a couple things to talk about. First, we welcome our Parks Advisory Board Chairman, Patrick Larkin, who's going to give us an update on the advisory board. And Patrick, come on up. He's joined by Bob Sartor, who got the opportunity to present to us at a recent Committee of the Whole. Bob, thank you for coming. Patrick, you have the floor. Thanks for being here.
Yes, sir. For the record, my name is Patrick Larkin. I am the chairman of the Parks Advisory Board, and I live in the First Ward. I thought it would be instructive to give this body an update what the Parks Advisory Board has been doing since inception and what we plan on doing in the next couple of months.
Excellent.
So since our mandate has been to provide the permanent bureaucracy and this body advice, a group of 10 volunteers, and we've been meeting quarterly and receiving an immense amount of information from the different departments and subdivision heads inside the Parks and Recreation. And that's been very instructive for us on all the facets of the Parks and Recreation Department. So what we decided to do, the 10 of us, we divided up all the parks that anywhere from 1 to 3 parks, each member was assigned a park to have a high level of visibility and knowledge of what goes into those parks. And at the end of the summer season, roll that up into a written report of things like material condition, general use of the parks, pattern of life, what's working well, what can be improved, phase replacement in each of the parks. And our plan is to give that written report via the Parks and Recreation Director for use in the city council's or the city's October planning, strategic planning session in the to assist in the management of scarce resources, which is really what it's all about. And what we decided in our July meeting is that there's an appetite to do more than the quarterly meetings and more discussion amongst our group. And one reason I'm here is to provide some visibility. And the annual delivery of information amongst the board, we feel that is not enough and adequate to give this group timely information, things about public opinion, how it's going out there. And so we are going to develop more networking and avenues to give this group more information that could be helpful to you in your management of these scarce resources. And that's what we'll be doing going forward in the off season, is developing some channels. And we will likely increase our meetings from quarterly to probably 8 times a year to get the group together. And because 1 hour, 1 quarter, we've been finding is not enough to develop lively discussion and consensus building within our body. So we will likely increase our meetings and develop that going forward. So we want to assist you with more steady stream of information. You're going to be hearing from us in our written report in October, and our intent is you hear from us more often. What we don't know what that is going to be, but we want to get information, more timely information in front of you. And the city administrator met with us about a week ago and gave us some other suggestions that he would like help with in the management of the city, and again, the management of scarce resources, some projects, and we'll be developing some ideas there, and also soliciting public opinion, as we're well networked in the community as well. So that is our update on the Parks Advisory Board. We all are appreciative for the appointment and approval opportunity to serve in the city, and we've been enjoying ourselves in the meantime. So I'll just pause there. If there's any questions, you can also always reach us via the Parks and Rec Director. She has all our points of contact to get in a rapid touch. So,
Anyone have questions? Yes, Greg.
Not a question, Your Honor, a statement. I just want to let everybody know that we're fortunate to have Patrick and Bob on the Veterans Memorial Committee with there's 7 of us total, and really appreciate your willingness to step up and get some people I think I'm the youngest guy on or maybe Bob is. So I am, yeah. So we need to get some younger people in, and he was nice enough to agree to do that. So in fact, we're having a meeting, just talking about it, we're having a meeting next week. So thank you so much for stepping up.
Oh, you're welcome. I did 20 years of service on the big picture stuff, and now I'm networking out to do service here on the local level. So happy to do it. All right, thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Yeah, Frank?
Thank you, Your Honor. Did everybody that was appointed originally stay on? And if not, what is your number of people now?
Yes, we still have the 10 that were appointed, and we have had, I've been pleasantly surprised at the high level of participation that we have received from all 10 of us. And when I went down this path of dividing up parks amongst everyone assigned 1 to 3 parks, and I asked for volunteers, and I got 100% participation back. Everybody rogered up to parks, and we tried to do it parks that were close to where everybody lives. So for me, my parks are close to where I live, and to make it easy access, and parks that those that have young children are in on a regular basis, so we can study the pattern of life. And so the participation amongst our volunteer group has been tremendous.
That's great.
Scott?
The only one comment I would make is, I think our goal setting is in October this year, correct? What day is it?
I think it's the 21st, but let me double check.
We'll make sure we get the report beforehand.
Yeah, it's actually the biggest thing is to get that report before we have our interviews with Lyle that set up to that, because otherwise it won't make the
Sure.
October agenda, at least from a council member. So sometimes that happens in late September or somewhere in that range. So we really need to try to have that report when we have our conversations with Lyle,
And
unless
just make sure that happens, Decker, Michelle. Kim,
Decker's
you
going
guys-
to enter those items in separately, which he may do too.
Sure.
I'd say by mid-September would be great.
Okay, we have our own deadline, and I'll talk to the Parks and Rec Director about when is the no later than date that
Perfect.
we have it to her so she can distribute to the wider body.
Yep,
And
that's
we'll,
awesome.
we'll make it happen on our end, okay?
Thank you. Patrick, on behalf of City Council and the folks in our departments, thank you very much for your volunteerism, for stepping up to help lead this organization. Thanks to the entire Parks and Rec Advisory Board. Sounds like you got an opportunity to hit the ground running, and we'll be interested in learning some more about what you learned from your work in the parks, and then keep working with you hand in hand as we move forward. So thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Great to see you, Patrick. Bob, thanks for coming. All right, let's move to our consent agenda item on tonight's agenda. This is consent agenda G. It's a resolution approving a site development plan for 1200 Devil's Glen Road, obviously submitted by David Kempen, who's here. Our Community Development Director, Mark Hunt, will be joining us here at the front of the room for this presentation. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate you.
Here with this development at all. How about you?
Thank you, Your Honor, members of the council. Just a quick update for you. You'll notice this presentation is going to be very similar to what you saw 2 weeks ago. Case 22029 has come through as 1200 Devil's Glen Road. It's a site development plan. The applicant is Dave Kemp, and I think that was mentioned. Proposed use is 3 apartment buildings, 2 townhouse row-style buildings, 126 total dwelling units on 10 acres plus or minus. You see in the upper left-hand corner, kind of a small, admittedly, but representation of the development and the green space that is preserved. The other 2 images are the facades of the top being the townhouses and the lower black and white facade of the apartment buildings. A lot of history and context to this site. We've talked about this before. I'll try and go quickly through this. 1972, a PUD for 3-story townhomes. 24, at least in the first phase, was brought forward and approved by this body, though it never developed. After that point, and into just current history, there's been a lot of non-conforming uses, some legal non-conforming and some probably illegal non-conforming. Those included a construction company, some outdoor storage, junkyard, for lack of a better word. In 1999, as the city was working to create the Duck Creek Bike Path that is serving this community and essentially the whole Iowa Quad Cities, there was an easement, access easement that was acquired on this property. And to acquire that access easement, the city guaranteed the holder of the property that no future development would be hindered by the granting of the easement. That meaning that we could not use the density calculation and cut out the part that's in the bike path and hold them to a lower density. That we had to count the entire property, the entire parcel, if you will. In 2020, there was a fire that destroyed the existing office and home. The office was for the construction company that had somewhat closed, but kind of been in minor operation, if you will. And then it was also occupied as a home as well. At that point, the city started looking at potentially pulling back the non-conforming uses because they would have ended after a year by the fire. In that same time frame, we were approached by a developer, Dave Kempin, in fact, who in March of 2020 held his first privately held neighborhood meeting in which he reached out to the property owners. I'd love to know what his plans were. The city revoked the PUD in May of 2022. I think that was necessary regardless of what was happening with future development. The PUD had never developed, and really after 2 years under our current ordinance, a PUD that's not developed is no more, and so that needed to be revoked. It was rezoned to R1 temporarily, and then formally from R1 to R4 in July of 2022 under case 22-07. That was brought to us by Dave Kempin in relation to this project. In July 2022, just 3 weeks ago, we had a postponement of the site development plan because there were some issues of clarity related to the berm, parking, and building spaces related to the site development plan. On August 3rd, we had a special meeting with the P&Z. Those issues were clarified, and the P&Z did make a positive recommendation. And I'll let you know, just today, we received the official LOMA for the property, so we do have that in our possession now. Letter of map amendment, if you will. So just again, current status, we now have current zoning in place. We have a final plat with the P&Z endorsement. We have a site development plan with P&Z endorsement. We also have a LOMA, a letter of map amendment, and we clarified to the satisfaction of the Planning and Zoning Commission the idea of the berm, building separation, and parking. Relative to the berm, the applicant has altered their site plan to show a berm in certain locations where it makes sense from a sight line point of view. And that's the applicant's contention and the P&Z's contention. Staff would still state we probably don't need a berm in this location because of the topography. Building separation is 30 feet between multifamily units of the same height, 15 feet for townhomes. That has been addressed in the new plan, and 11 parking spaces were added, so now they're slightly overparked. Just a quick reminder, this was the original concept plan. This is a conditional rezoning, so we have to make sure that whatever project comes forward is materially similar to this, and I would say what has been brought forward is materially similar to this and probably an improvement upon it. I'm going to go to the next slide. It's just a little easier to see. So here's just the additions, the things that have changed over time with this project, and it's the current version is what you see here. So bermed in a few locations where it makes sense with the topography, and a berm down here protecting against this apartment building. I would say this berm, if it is put in place, would need to make sure there's nothing in the sight line as you turn out or in at that corner. Added some parking, about 11 spaces added. Those are shown in red. And then we added 11 foot of total spacing between these two buildings, and then a couple feet between the building, the townhomes up here. Staff has a positive recommendation for the site plan, and it was approved 4-0 at the special meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission on 8/3. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mark? We've gone through it a couple times. Scott?
How far back from the curb are the berms? Anybody know? I can't tell on there.
You know, I haven't scaled that, but I know they're about 12 foot wide. So I'm going to say they are probably 8 feet from the curb. If the sidewalk's 4 feet, 8 or 9 feet from the curb.
How do we know that they're not going to impede traffic for sightlines? I mean, that
I think that's a very good question, Alderman, and I would say that staff is staunchly believes that we just don't need, they just don't work here. And I think when you actually start building, that will become more evident.
this is a case where I agree with staff heavily and disagree with adding those. I think it's going to add a safety hazard that I don't think is worthwhile. Or we're going to have to make them tear them back out later because you're going to have a sightline problem. I get where the ordinance says where the ordinance is, but they're really piecemealed in here anyways. So to me, I don't. I side with staff in saying that I think they should be removed.
And I do believe, I
Or
don't
looked
believe,
at
I
on
know,
site.
excuse me, sir, I do know that our council has the ultimate say on what constitutes a berm of satisfaction. So it would be up to this body when they make their vote on what the berm should be or should not be.
Other questions? Well, it's currently on as a consent agenda item for tomorrow night. If there's somebody who wishes to remove it from consent to have that discussion and maybe look at that berm item, we could do that. Otherwise, we pass it and we hope inspection and, you know, working together, we make that right choice.
I mean, can staff unilaterally change that on site when they get there? If it's approved.
We're going to
that
approve
way-
the site plan, but what is the berm you want? For instance,
I mean, it might work, it might not. It's one of those things in construction, you have these all the time. You get there and you're like, yeah, that's not gonna work.
it was a great idea on paper,
Yeah, do we
but I
give,
don't know that we're going to be able to see around it.
the staff have the authority to,
On this site plan, the berm accomplishes absolutely nothing. It's there because we, council in our infinite wisdom, decided to put that provision in the code about 3-4 years ago. I would like to make a motion that this get approved with staff's ability. That would be community development and city engineering departments' final approval of the berm size.
Second.
Okay, so we're going to, let's move it off of consent first, and then we can
do we need to,
attack it tomorrow.
can't we just amend it and leave it on consent?
You make a motion to amend the
Consent.
site plan that would be approved tomorrow on consent.
We could do that.
I think we could, I mean, if we're going to do that by motion, as long as we're clear on what,
Okay, so the motion is.
Didn't I do that?
Yeah, you did. And I
Okay.
was going to move it because I wanted to have you be able to talk about it tomorrow, but maybe that's not what you want.
Well, I mean, we can talk about it still when it comes to consent item.
Yeah, you could ask questions about it there, and if you wanted to remove it off, you can move it off. So you've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on this motion? All right, seeing none, Michelle, would you please call the roll?
Adamson.
Aye.
Brown. Aye. Connors.
Aye.
Nauman.
Aye.
Sexer.
Aye.
Baden.
Aye.
Webster.
Aye.
Okay, and with that, we have it marked as consent G. I'd entertain a motion to remain the same.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll take it up on consent, and we'll talk through, Chris, maybe think about that with us, what that actually means in terms of how we, and Mark, how we look at this differently. We want to work with the developer, but if we're having them put something in that's going to be a sightline issue, we got to figure that out. And maybe it's not.
And maybe it's not. I just
your
want to make
point-
sure they have the authority to remove it if need be, and they're not, don't have to make the developer turn around and come back to us.
Right, we want him to be able to get working on whatever he wants to work on.
Yeah. If it,
You're
if
not
it,
gonna really know until the thing is
yeah,
put in, because if it's 9 feet back, the car has to stop before entering the
Yeah.
street. And if it's back this way, it's not gonna be a side, or you can make it lower.
and we all know what happens if we require him to do it and then require him to remove it.
Yeah.
The taxpayers end up probably having to foot part of that bill. If we give them authority, I think ultimately they'll make the right decision.
In my opinion, a change in elevation of 6 inches is a berm.
Yeah.
So there you go, he can put in 6-inch berms, keep the sight lines down. Any remaining consent agenda items any particular council member would like to discuss at this time or has a question about?
Yes, sir.
Craig, go ahead.
Just real quick, E, I was looking at the maps that were given. I still can't figure out what exactly is this?
It's
Okay.
Brian, I can explain it.
You know?
I do.
Brent and Brian, you're on. We're looking at consent E, the petition for stream bank stabilization improvements near Heatherstone Road and Crow Creek Road. We're just receiving and filing this petition. Scott?
This is an area that goes south from Heatherstone to Crow Creek. Blazer Residence is right there, if you may know where that's at. It's an area that's got sewer, I believe, going through it, and it's heavily eroded.
So it's to protect our infrastructure.
It's protect our infrastructure is part of the look that we're looking at, but it's also, the homeowners are willing to look at the situation and see what part they may be involved, what part the city will be involved. But we needed to receive it so that they're already working on it, but we wanted to make sure it came in for the record.
Thank you.
Yep, just a formal receipt so that we know we've got it.
Okay.
Any other particular items on consent to be discussed at this time? All right, let's entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Take a look at your operational items. We do have the aquatic and ice rink amenities on for tomorrow, so we should expect to be here quite a bit. We have a couple of easy public hearings or several. Anything else that's on this agenda, any particular council person would like to discuss or maybe inquire about? Jerry?
Thank you, Your Honor. Item 7, the Crestview Heights subdivision. Is there any particular issue there that we should be aware of, or is this just a routine one? It appears as though that it's...
I think you may, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
It appears as though that it's a private drive, so we don't have to worry about maintenance of that driveway.
I think you'll have some folks in the neighborhood come speak on this tomorrow, Mark, don't you believe? And this is a residential, I mean, it's a person who purchased the lot and has an easement to do what he wants to do to build.
Yeah, I think there's a couple issues going on in the neighborhood. I think those are private concerns. The city's action here is relative to the rezoning, but you are correct. Crestview Heights Drive, which I happen to throw on the screen here for you, is a private drive. There is also a recorded access agreement to this kind of pie-shaped lot that is recorded, I think, in 1985 with the county of Scott County. So we take those at face value. There may be some contention between the residents about this agreement and the maintenance of the road, but that's all private. We are looking only at the rezoning.
The house proposed, I don't know if you've seen plans, but it would meet the neighborhood. It's not something that is classified different than a single-family residence or will look material or different than any of the residents in the neighborhood, correct?
That's correct, Mayor. What's happening is it's an A1 lot. So right now, it's actually a non-conforming lot because you have to be 5 acres to be an A1 lot. It's an A2 request, and A2 would allow the development of a single-family home. A2 is known as rural residential district, which is what all the other houses are. And so this property owner to develop this property needs to go from A1 to A2. The issue relative to the access easement and the private drive, I believe, is a private matter, and I would just emphasize that. We're looking only at the rezoning and if it's congruent with the city's plan and the other areas around it.
Anything else on any other item? All right, let's entertain a motion to approve those operational items.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll take up the agenda as written tomorrow. I have no items to be added this evening. Does anybody else have anything to add? All right, well, thank you all for coming. Let's entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We stand adjourned. Good work. We'll see you tomorrow night.